What's up everybody, blessed be. My name is Manon and you are watching Witch in the Working, where we will be discussing all things witchy in and around, throughout and about, above, below, and beyond. This video offers my personal views of the topic at hand. Please visit me on my other platforms as well, including Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon, all linked down in the description below. The full script to this video and most of the others is available on my Patreon account for download if desired to build your own Witch in the Working Book of Shadows. Do you need help with a spell or fancy a tarot reading? Shoot on over to my store, Bewitching and Bizarre, with choices listed down in the description below for your personalized working and or reading. So, why does it seem like there are way more women than men in witchcraft? And no, we're not here to throw shade or point fingers. We're here to peel back the layers, look at the history, the culture, the energy, and even a little bit of that social programming that plays into it all. I've been in the craft for over 3 decades, and as a male witch and an online educator / influencer, whatever you want to call it, for nearly 5 years, I can tell you firsthand, it's not that men aren't out there, it's just that you don't always see us. I get comments all the time from people saying, wow, it's great to see a male witch, actually teaching about this stuff. But the visibility or lack of it says a lot about where we've been and where we're going as a magical community. It is estimated that as of the time of shooting this video, that the percentage of women versus men in Wicca is approximately 70% women to 30% men. So whether you're brand new to the path or a seasoned practitioner, grab a comfy seat, light a candle, and let's explore the deeper reasons behind this gender imbalance and why it actually matters more than you might think. Roll intro. Welcome back everybody. So let's kick things off by getting to the root of this big old question. Why have women and witchcraft been so tightly linked for centuries? I mean, when someone hears the word witch, to the mundane, they usually picture a woman, right? Pointy hat, black cat, maybe a bubbling cauldron or two. But where did that connection come from? And is it just a stereotype, or is there some real spiritual and historical grounding behind it? Let's rewind the clock. Way back, before Christianity, before the Inquisition, even before the ancient Greeks had Zeus tossing lightning bolts. In tribal and early agrarian societies, women were often seen as the keepers of life and mystery. They gave birth, they bled with the moon, and they had this profound connection with nature that honestly freaked some people out. But it wasn't fear at first, it was reverence. Women were the healers, the midwives, the seers. They knew which plant could soothe a fever and which ones could send you talking to ancestors on the other side. They were the ones who led seasonal rites, talked to spirits, and honored the changing face of the earth. In many cultures, that spiritual wisdom wasn't just respected, it was sacred. Think of figures like the Oracle of Delphi and the Vestal Virgins or the Celtic priestesses of the British Isles. These weren't spooky Halloween decorations. They were powerful women holding religious and magical authority. But then came a pretty sharp shift. When patriarchal systems started taking root, especially with the rise of monotheistic religions, the power balance tilted hard. Suddenly the roles women held were either stripped away, absorbed by male priests, or demonized altogether. What was once seen as sacred feminine wisdom got relabeled as witchcraft, but now in the bad sense. You weren't a wise woman anymore. You were dangerous, a seductress, a devil worshipper, a threat. And we all know where that led, the witch trials. From the European Inquisition to the infamous Salem witch trials in colonial America, the overwhelming majority of those accused were women. Not just any women, either often the poor, the widowed, the healers, or anyone who stepped outside the lines of what a proper woman was supposed to be. It wasn't just about magic, it was about control. If you were independent, outspoken, or didn't need a man to survive, you suddenly became suspicious. But here's the thing, and it's important. The image of the witch as a woman didn't just survive those dark times, it evolved. In the modern craft, many women see that figure not as something shameful, but as empowering. The witch has become a symbol of feminine strength, spiritual autonomy, and a deep mystical bond with the natural world. It's like we've taken back the word and turned it into a badge of honor. For Wiccans and many other modern witches, the goddess is central to spiritual practice. She represents the moon, the earth, the tides of life and death. She's the maiden, mother, and crone. That triple aspect mirrors the stages of womanhood and honors them as sacred. For many women, connecting to this divine feminine energy is like coming home to a part of themselves they didn't even know was missing. Now, that's not to say men haven't been part of this story too, and we'll get into that a little later. But there's a reason so many women feel drawn to the craft. It offers them a spiritual path that validates who they are, one that doesn't ask them to submit or silence themselves, but instead says, your body, your intuition, your power, it's all sacred. So yeah, the link between women and witchcraft isn't just some trope left over from fairy tales. It's got roots, and those roots run deep. From ancient priestesses to persecuted healers, and now to modern witches reclaiming their path, the connection is rich, layered, and absolutely worth exploring. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Okay, let's talk Wicca, the modern craft that really put the spotlight back on the divine feminine. Here we roll into the 20th century and watch that connection turn into something empowering again. So picture this, it's the 1940s, just after World War II. The world is tired, battered, and deeply disillusioned with authority. And here comes this quirky British guy, Gerald Gardner, saying, hey, there's an ancient pre-Christian religion that honors both God and Goddess, and I just happen to be reviving it. Whether or not Gardner's version of history was airtight is up for debate, and trust me, the community loves to debate. But what he did do was put the goddess front and center again in a world where the divine had been largely male for a long time. Wicca came in hot with a spiritual system that celebrated nature, seasonal cycles, magical workings, and most importantly, balance. Instead of a single all-powerful god ruling from a throne in the sky, Wicca gave us the goddess and the god, equal and complementary forces dancing through the wheel of the year. She's the earth, the moon, the fertile womb of creation. He's the sun, the forest, the wild hunt. Together they represent the harmony of all things, not domination of one over the other. But let's be real. When Wicca started to catch on, it was the goddess who stole the show. For many women, especially in the 60s and 70s, when second-wave feminism was lighting fires everywhere, Wicca felt like a homecoming. Here was a spiritual path that didn't just tolerate women, it celebrated them. It said, your cycles are sacred, your intuition is magic, your voice matters. That message hit differently in a world where most major religions were still telling women to stay quiet, stay covered, or stay behind the scenes. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. As the feminist movement surged, Wicca provided spiritual fuel. Women who were reclaiming their rights in society were also reclaiming their power in the unseen realms. Books like The Spiral Dance by Starhawk and The Holy Book of Women's Mysteries by Z Budapest made waves by mixing feminist ideals with magical practice. They didn't just teach spell work, they taught self-worth and spiritual sovereignty. And let's not forget the magical shift that came with focusing on the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone. Each phase represented a stage of life, and each one was honored equally. That was groundbreaking. In a society that often glorifies youth and ignores or fears aging, Wicca said, no, we see wisdom in every stage, and a lot of women heard that loud and clear. For beginners, this concept can be really comforting. You're not being told to fit in a mold. You're being invited to find your place in a sacred cycle. Whether you're in your wild maiden years, nurturing your mother phase, or stepping into the powerful crone energy, you're part of something cosmic and beautiful. Wicca gives you a mirror and says, this is divine, you are divine. The goddess isn't just an external being to honor, she becomes something you embody. You begin to see her in the changing seasons, the rhythm of your breath, and the people you meet. The craft becomes not just a practice, but a relationship with the living spirit of the earth and the moon. Of course, Wicca also honors the god, the horned one, the green man, the dying and reborn sun king. But let's be real. In a world that's been drenched in male deity worship for centuries, the reemergence of the goddess feels revolutionary. So why are so many women drawn to the craft? Well, here's part of the answer. Wicca gave them a divine mirror. It gave them a goddess who looks like them, who feels like them, and who lives not at a distant heaven, but in the wild places, the night sky, and their own bones. And honestly, that's some powerful magic. Alright, let's pull up a seat and get real for a minute. We talked about the ancient history of women and the craft and how Wicca brought the goddess back into the spotlight, but now we're going to zoom in on something that hits a little closer to home. Like, why does it feel like more women are drawn to witchcraft in the first place than men? What is it about the craft that just seems to click for so many women? It's not just aesthetics, although yeah, candle-lit altar with herbs and crystals can be pretty enchanting. It's deeper than that. We're going to talk all about emotional intuition and social permission, two powerful forces that shape how people engage with magic, and why so many women feel like they finally found their spiritual home when they step into the craft. Let's start with intuition. You know, that inner knowing, that gut feeling, that voice inside that whispers, this path feels right. Intuition is a cornerstone of magical work. Whether you're casting a spell, interpreting a tarot card, or communing with a deity, you're relying on your inner compass to guide you. And guess what? Women, culturally speaking, are encouraged to be intuitive more than men are. From a young age, girls are often told to go with their feelings, to listen, to emphasize, to nurture. Society trains women to be emotionally attuned to others and to themselves. Now, that's not to say all women are naturally intuitive and all men are not, because trust me, plenty of deeply intuitive men exist in the craft. But the point is, women are generally given permission to explore those inner landscapes without judgment. Witchcraft thrives in those emotional, intuitive spaces. The craft isn't about following a rigid dogma or sticking to a script. It's about sensing energy, listening to spirits, and working with what you feel just as much as what you know. And for many women, that feels like coming home because it matches the emotional language they've been speaking their whole lives. Now let's flip the coin and talk about men for a second. Culturally, boys are often taught to toughen up. Don't cry. Don't be too sensitive. Don't trust feelings. Trust logic. So by the time a man starts exploring something like witchcraft, which asks him to tune into energy, emotion, and the unknown, he's already been conditioned to doubt those instincts. That doesn't mean men can't access the craft. Of course they can. But for many, it takes unlearning a whole lot of emotional suppression just to get there. This brings us to social permission. The invisible rules society writes about who's allowed to be spiritual, mystical, or magical. For decades, women have had just a little more room to explore the esoteric without being laughed out of the room. Think about it. If a woman tells her friends she's into astrology, they might roll their eyes, but they probably won't stage an intervention. Now imagine a man doing the same. He's more likely to be met with confusion or even ridicule. That permission gap is real, and it's one reason more women feel safe stepping into the craft openly. But here's a juicy little twist. This dynamic is shifting, big time. As gender roles continue to evolve, more men are feeling free to explore spirituality without shame. More people are saying, screw what society expects, I'm following what speaks to me. And that's beautiful because witchcraft at its core, it's about connection to nature, to spirit, and to the self. Still, we can't ignore how the path has historically and socially felt more accessible to women. The craft gives women a place where their emotions aren't just tolerated, they're celebrated. Their intuition isn't doubted, it's essential. And their spiritual voice isn't silenced, it's amplified. So when you see covens full of women and your local metaphysical shop buzzing with feminine energy, it's not just coincidence. It's the result of generations of social shaping, emotional empowerment, and spiritual hunger finally finding its outlet. The craft gives women something many paths haven't, the freedom to be their full, complex, powerful selves. So, let's talk about the guys and the craft for a bit. We've spent some time exploring why women seem to be drawn to witchcraft in larger numbers, but that doesn't mean men aren't here or don't belong. In fact, male witches have always been a part of the story, even if they've had to fight a little harder to be seen and accepted. For instance, on my YouTube channel, this one right here, Witch in the Working, I've been sharing educational content on Wicca, witchcraft, and the occult for nearly 5 years. With 28,500 subscribers, which I completely appreciate, I've built a solid, engaged community. But it's no secret that male witch influencers like myself are a rarity in the online spiritual space. I often hear from subscribers who say they've never come across a male witch educator before finding my channel. It's interesting to see how some younger female witch creators, even with less time on the platform and fewer uploads, have quickly reached hundreds of thousands of followers. That's not a jab, it's just a reflection of how representation, algorithms, and visibility play a role in whose voices rise to the top. I'm proud to offer a unique perspective and contribute to making the craft more inclusive and balanced for everyone drawn to it. So let's bust a few myths, celebrate some powerful masculine energy, and talk about what it really means to reclaim the sacred masculine in modern witchcraft. First off, let's clear something up. The word witch is not gender specific. It never was. That whole idea that witches are women and wizards or warlocks are men is more of a pop culture invention than anything rooted in authentic spiritual practice. And let me say right here, right now, that I love the term warlock. Just putting it out there. I have a whole video on it. Check it out. Historically, Wicca, pronounced Wicca, was a male witch, and Wicca, pronounced Witchy, was a female witch. Both men and women have been accused of and practiced witchcraft. Sure, women were targeted more often during the witch hunts, as we covered earlier, but that doesn't mean men weren't burned alongside them. The craft has always been available to anyone willing to work with the forces of nature, spirit, and self. Now let's talk about the sacred masculine. And no, I don't mean some chest-beating macho warrior energy, though there's a place for warrior archetypes in magic. I'm talking about divine masculinity as it exists within the craft. The horned god, the green man, the sun king, these are powerful ancient energies that represent life, death, rebirth, protection, strength, and wild, untamed vitality. And just like the goddess, the god has many faces. He's not one-dimensional. He can be nurturing, fierce, playful, wise, sensual, and everything in between. When Wicca came along in the mid-20th century, it gave us a balanced view of divinity. You had the goddess and the god, yin and yang, moon and sun, shadow and flame. But somewhere along the way, especially with the rise of feminist spirituality in the 70s and 80s, the spotlight leaned pretty heavily on the feminine. And honestly, that was necessary at the time. Women needed a space to reclaim what had been denied to them. But now we're seeing a movement where men are being called to do the same, to reconnect with the sacred masculine in ways that are healthy, loving, and spiritually rich. Being a male witch today often means unlearning a lot of the toxic ideas society teaches about masculinity. Things like real men don't cry, or emotion is weakness, or spirituality is soft. In the craft, those rules go right out the window. Magic requires vulnerability. It asks you to trust your intuition, sit with your emotions, and forge deep connections with the earth, with spirits, with yourself. And for many men, that's deeply healing. Now let's give a shout out to some of the incredible men who've shaped modern witchcraft. Gerald Gardner gave us the early framework of Wicca. Raymond Buckland helped bring it to America. Scott Cunningham has written some of the most thoughtful, inclusive material out there for witches of all levels. These men didn't just make room for male witches. They reminded everyone that magic is not owned by any one gender. It belongs to all of us. For beginners who are just stepping onto the path and might be feeling a little unsure, especially the guys, here's the real deal. You don't have to act a certain way or fit a specific mold to be a witch. You just need to show up with an open heart, a curious mind, and a willingness to grow. The god welcomes you, the goddess welcomes you, the craft welcomes you. And for experienced male witches out there, you're not just practicing magic, you're modeling something powerful. You're showing the world that men can be healers, empaths, ritual leaders, and spiritual warriors without compromising their identity. That's not just inspiring, it's necessary. So if you're a man on this path, know that you're standing in a long sacred line of magicians, druids, seers, shamans, and spellcasters. Your place in the craft is not just valid, it's vital. Let's face it, witchcraft isn't a trend, a fashion statement, or something you pick up for clout. Sure, it might come in waves of popularity, and yeah, the aesthetic might catch someone's attention on social media, but those who stick around, those who live it, know the truth. The craft is a calling, and it doesn't matter if you're a male or female, old or young, solitary or part of a coven, the ones who truly seek always seem to find their way to it. The craft has this ancient heartbeat, like something echoing from deep within the earth. It doesn't yell, it doesn't beg, it whispers, and those who are meant to hear it do. That whisper might come as a fascination with the moon, a draw to the woods, a gut-level pull toward candlelight and silence. It might start with a book, a dream, a moment of deja vu that feels too real. However it starts, it's not about hype or hashtags. It's something sacred, personal, and timeless. Witchcraft at its core speaks to those who are willing to walk their own path. It calls to the intuitive, the ones who question, the ones who feel like they've never quite fit into the mold of the mainstream belief systems. And when you finally answer that call, it doesn't matter how many followers you've got or how flashy your altar looks. It matters that you show up, that you study, practice, listen, and grow, that you can come into alignment with the natural world and the rhythm of your own spirit. Now, in today's world, where everyone's chasing the next shiny thing, this can be a tough sell. People want instant results, instant answers, but the craft doesn't work that way. It's slow, purposeful, mysterious, And that's what makes it so powerful. Witchcraft teaches you to observe, to listen between the lines, to learn from nature, spirit, and your own experiences, not just to recite information, but to live your truth. This is why so many of us, especially those who've been walking this road for years, tend to raise an eyebrow when witchcraft gets watered down into bite-sized trends. The craft has survived for thousands of years because it was practiced with reverence. It was passed down in hushed voices, through initiations, study, and real-life experiences. It's not here to be trendy, it's here to transform, and it will always call the ones who are ready to do the work. For both men and women, this path offers something the modern world often forgets: balance. Not just gender balance, but elemental balance, spiritual balance, the harmony of light and shadow, of action and stillness, of speaking and listening. Witchcraft teaches you how to move in sync with the world around you, to draw from both the divine feminine and the sacred masculine, and to find power not in dominance but in connection. And here's the real beauty of it. When someone finds their way to the craft and chooses to walk it seriously, with heart and discipline, they're tapping into a lineage of seekers that stretches across generations, cultures, and continents. That's what gives the path its strength. It's not held together by social approval or popularity. It's held together by the will of the people who live it. So whether you're just starting out or you've been on this road for decades, the lesson is the same. Come to the craft with respect. Bring your curiosity, bring your sincerity. The bells and whistles might get attention, but it's the quiet, steady fire of true devotion that keeps the magic alive. The craft isn't here to entertain you, it's here to change you. And if you're ready to grow, ready to learn, and ready to walk a path that's both ancient and alive, then welcome. You've already heard the call. As we wrap things up, it's clear that the craft has always had a rhythm of its own. Through history, myth, and modern practice, it continues to call to those who are willing to listen, those who seek a deeper connection with nature, the divine, and themselves. Whether you're drawn to the goddess, the god, or the sacred balance between them, witchcraft is a living path that meets you where you are and challenges you to grow. It's not about trends or popularity, it's about devotion, awareness, and the will to shape your life with purpose. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that witchcraft doesn't choose sides, it chooses souls. It calls the curious, the courageous, and the ones who don't mind doing the work to uncover truth. Your gender, your background, your story, those are part of your path, but they don't define your worth in the craft. What matters is your heart, your integrity, and your willingness to honor the old ways while forging your own. Keep your flame lit, stay rooted in what's real, and always remember the craft is timeless, but it's your dedication that brings it to life. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of Witch in the Working. Why do you think women outnumber men in the craft? Let us all know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to ring that little bell to be reminded of the wonderful and exciting future episodes to come. Love you guys and girls. Blessed be.